All right, guys, I want to thank you all for joining me here today to talk about this new product, the Realism Cheat Code Toolkit. This is kind of a new kind of product, something unlike we've ever really done before at Tattoo Smart. All it is really is just a file, a Procreate file with a number of layers inside of it. And within these layers, there's quite a bit of magic and a lot of digital design knowledge that's just hidden within all of this. And what it does is it allows you to really, really simply and quickly run through a lot of different edits of an image. It could be any image, a photo that you import from the internet. It could be a photo that you took yourself. It could even be an illustration that you've done. And so it's a visualization tool that has the purpose of allowing you to quickly understand how you want to approach the different values in a piece. It can actually help you in generating a stencil, and it can help you to visualize what this tattoo design is going to look like on different skin tones, and including different types of skin, all the way to the extreme example of a very hairy back, which we'll get to a little bit later. I'm going to jump into the kit, and you're going to find here we've included what we call the practice skull. And the first thing that you can do is you can insert your own image. We put a layer here that just says place image here. And any image that you have saved into your iPad can be added in here, but I'll just give you an example of how you do that. So you tap on this wrench and go to add, and then just insert a photo. Got some interesting stuff here. Let's try this Johnny Cash here. Okay, so I've got this Johnny Cash photo, and I'll just kind of move it and scale it into place. And I will toggle off the practice skull. So now we've got our image here. And if this had been a color photo, you could just make it black and gray instantly, just to demonstrate that real quick. You have your practice skull. Any color image that you put here, you can instantly make black and gray just by tapping the checkbox there that says make black and gray, right? So take that back away. Now here's our Johnny Cash. We'll turn him back on. Now I've got Neotrad mode enabled here. And really what Neotrad is doing is it's breaking down everything into different sections of value. And if I expand this here, you'll find that the only one of these layers that's actually checked right now is the fine black layer. So let's see what happens when we go ahead and check all of them. Now what we have here is a posterized look where each of these different segments of the value scale has been isolated and compressed. So instead of seeing everything totally smooth like we do in this kind of low resolution image, this breaks everything into bands of value. And so zooming in on it, you can really, really see each value that you want to try to focus on as you're rendering Johnny Cash, right? And so bringing it back to just fine black, what you'll notice is it's really highlighting everything that's truly close enough to black to be considered black in your tattoo. So you can toggle this on and off, and it will allow you to see what is actually black in this image, just like this. So one of the ways that I imagine us using this is actually step by step as we're going through and rendering a tattoo. I want to switch over to the skull because I think this Johnny Cash is a little bit low resolution for our purposes. So let's switch back to this, and you can see what's happening here. All right, so I've hit make black and gray, and instantly you can see it sort of starts to work. Fine black is isolating just these areas deep inside of the nasal cavity, a few little spots here between the teeth, a little bit here and there, this area here. It's actually nothing really happening that's black inside of the eye sockets right now. And I think that's really fascinating because I think we might assume that it should be. But as you start to add more and more layers, as we add the 90% gray, I can sort of imagine you approaching this tattoo in this way where you start with just what's black and you render these shapes. Maybe you zoom in and have this up on your iPad as you're kind of rendering this piece. And you're really focusing on rendering out something that looks pretty close to this just in black. And then when you're done with your black phase, you throw on the next layer, find 90% gray, and now you start to kind of blend out from that black and fill until it looks like this in the nasal cavity. You just keep going on and on and on, 80% gray, 70%, 60%. And as you do this, the values just start to appear, but you get these really distinct ridges. So the idea here is that what was once a fully realistic skull is now broken down into these bands of value so that you can clearly see what they are in kind of like a paint by numbers sort of approach. And as you move through the whole thing, that's where you end up. Now, of course, if you wanted to, you could do a tattoo that looks like this and it would still feel like a very realistic, normal tattoo style that you could do. And of course, you can blend in between these areas so that you don't end up having such a posterized look. Now, one of the interesting things that you can also do here is you can switch from Neotrad mode over into what we call trad mode, for lack of a better name. What trad mode is doing is really isolating a specific kind of moment in time. It's where, depending on what you choose here, and at this point we have 50% gray toggled, but depending on what you choose, you're going to see everything that's darker than 50% gray becomes black. Everything that's lighter than 50% gray becomes white. And so you can decide which of these is the right choice, right? So here's 80% gray. And so what we're seeing is everything that is lighter than 80% gray is white now. And I find that this particular image seems to really start to come alive right around here at 60 or maybe 50. And so you can use this just to take any full resolution, full value image and find a really nice kind of simple way to express it in just black and white. So that's what the trad mode is for. And now moving on, there is a contrast booster here, and this really, really quickly just expresses a higher level of contrast in the image and gives you an instant way to sort of like find a way to kind of get more black in there to really push the highlights and the difference between the darks and the lights and find a happy medium. If you wanted to open this up, there's 3 different options here. You've got darker shadows, darker mids, and brighter highlights. And so you can kind of play around with, all of these different options and sort of dial in something that makes sense for your piece, or you can just turn it off altogether. So that's what contrast boost is. And then finally, we have the skin overlay section, and this is what happens. So we've got the hairy back set on here right now, but when you open this up, what you want to try to do is choose one of these 6 skin types, something that's the closest to your client. These are the Fitzpatrick scale skin types, and in this method they do a rough job of approximating the 6 different base level skin types of the Fitzpatrick scale. So right now I've got type 3 selected, but it's probably best if you only select one type at a time. You can stack them and it gets even darker. So this is the type 6, and then we've also got, on top of that, we've got the skin texture layer. So let's take it back to, let's say it's type 2. I've got a hairy skin texture and a pretty smooth skin texture, and I'll show you guys what these actually look like. But if you turn on the hairy back skin texture, you can see there's some moles in there, there's some visible hairs, and this is really helping you to understand what this tattoo would look like if it was actually tattooed. And to help that even more, we have the simulate heal button. And what this does is it turns what was once black into kind of a lighter, the darker values get a little bit lighter. I'm not sure if you guys can see this on the screen of the video, but if you see this for yourself, you'll see what I mean. And if you wanted to dial up the amount of simulate heal, select the layer, tap with 2 fingers, and you can raise the opacity up until you're happy with how it looks. I just had it set at 5, I believe. All right, so that's simulate heal. We've got 2 different skin textures. Just for laughs, I want to show you guys what is actually happening here with the skin texture. If you set that to normal, you can be delighted by a lovely photo of my back that was taken a couple of days ago. And I don't like looking at this, so maybe you probably won't either. And I'm just going to turn that back to overlay layer mode as quickly as possible. Some tips and tricks here. One of the things we found is you can do all of your adjustments, say like get it to where you want it in Neotrad mode, for example, and then you can duplicate your image, and you can jump over here and start to make some adjustments here to your original image, and all of what it changes will happen in real time. So like, let's say curves. So you can start to move curves around and find entirely different expressions of everything. And it still stays posterized. So that's one thing you can do. Another you can do is going to be a Gaussian blur, which is just going to make everything get ultra simple. Like on the edge of Gaussian blur, obviously it's not even a skull anymore, but as you move, we'll get to a place, and this is super interesting, right? You get to a place where it's just ultra simple. Let's go back and do another levels adjustment. Now I'm curious to see what this looks like when we turn off all the extra stuff. Okay, yeah, there's something going on here, something really interesting. And one final trick, if you do this in color, obviously it's quite an interesting effect, but one of the nice things here is that you can screen grab your image, or you can save it, share JPEG, save it to your camera roll, come over here to the color picker and make sure you're on palettes. So if your color picker looks like this, choose palettes, hit this plus sign and say new from photos. And you can pick that screen grab or that shared image, and it's going to create a 30 color palette of all of the colors that it sees in this image. So you can use this to help to choose what colors you want to pour out to do this tattoo. Let's say you want to quickly get to some different colors. Let's go back to here. At this point, I think it's really fun to try hue, saturation, and brightness, and then just move around this hue slider. And you can see some awesome different palettes emerge right before your eyes. Maybe you like something like that. And another method, where's it going to be? Maybe it's under here. Gradient map. So you can cycle through the gradient maps that are already here, or you can create your own. And the way that you create your own gradient maps is by selecting from here and choosing the first color. Let's go with something kind of like a dark blue. And then we'll select something like maybe kind of a murky yellow. And let's throw some more options in here. Kind of like the look of that. This is a really cool tool. Yeah, let's brighten that up a little bit. And then you can move these pucks around. Say I'm happy with that. So yeah, guys, I think that's the real quick demo. I'd love to get some feedback, questions, interactions, whatever feels right to you guys. Is there anyone that just wants to jump in here?
Well, just for me, like, I just brought in a picture of a tattoo that I'm doing soon, and I was just playing around with it. And the way that I can control with it, like, versus the versus the trad mode, the Neotrad to me is really nice the way it breaks down the values and kind of just cycling through a little bit and toggling different ones on and off. The effects that it creates is it's really nice. It makes it visually really easy to see, you know, okay, this is like 40% gray, this is 80% gray. Whereas sometimes, especially in like really hyper detailed images, it can be a little bit muddy. Like I'm doing a tiger, and sometimes on the face where there's lots of detail, it all just sort of mushes together.
Yeah.
So it kind of separated a little bit. Kind of shows me areas too where I could go through and tweak the levels of my image. It's like, okay, like this side of the tiger's face is just not dark enough. So it's not only helping me see the values, but also see where I can make some corrections.
People that have a really good understanding of tools like levels and the various tools that you can use to adjust images in Photoshop or even Procreate, they might recognize some of these tricks. But my hope with this is that by pulling your image into this, you don't have to know how to do all those things. And this is also not lossless like that would be, right? Because once you make those adjustments and you want to go back a few steps, you just have to undo everything. But with this tool, everything is happening in layers above your actual artwork. So you can always get back to what you started with. And I think that's one of the things.
Sure. A lot of time my files can get a little cluttered because I just keep duplicating. I'll like break everything into groups, flatten the image, duplicate it, and then I'm making adjustments, and then and it makes it really muddy and confusing. I mean, I'm used to it, but this is nice being able to just throw my image in here and make some adjustments, and helps me visualize a little bit more.
This toolkit is just really exciting. I'm even more excited for it now that you've explained it for me to understand it better. I wondered, with the skin overlays, I see a lot of potential for educating on tattooing different skin types as well.
My goal here is to be inclusive, but still make something that is functional, right, and that people can use. So
the instant contrast tool, because sometimes I could sit there and contrast it, and it's like saying a word over and over again, where you don't really trust yourself. It's nice to just be like, boom, that's the standard. Maybe adjust that a tiny bit. I just think that's cool because that's just saves a ton of time. Not like second guessing your own contrasting skills.
Here's the difference. It's pretty substantial, but if it's too much for you, you can go back in here and open this up and unlock it and unlock these, and you can start to change their opacity. Right? So you can, this one's at 100%. Let's see what the others were at. This one's at 80 right now. So you can change the expression of the midtones, for example, like that. This one's at 100. So you get different effects.